So this is it, huh? This is the vehicle. There it is. 67,000 miles. Holy crap. Wow. That is a lot of miles. All right, so welcome back. We're actually here in a Tesla Model 3 that belongs to this gentleman here. Please introduce yourself.
My name's Jim Snook. I'm a Tesla Model 3 owner. I've had it since July of 2018, and I've already put over 67,000 miles on it.
67,000 miles. I'm very embarrassed to say how many miles are on mine, given that I've had my car longer than you, and I've got 16 or 17,000. My excuse is I have a 2-year-old, so it's hard to travel long distances. But Jim, thanks for taking the time to talk with us. And we kind of, I think the goal here is to really understand, what does putting that much mileage on a Tesla Model 3, what kind of effect does that have to the car, and how does one put so much mileage on it? So I think let's start there, right? 70,000 miles. You got your vehicle in July of 2018. So a little bit over a year. 70,000 miles is a lot more than most people. And I think on the unofficial leaderboard, you're up there. What ranking I think you're at right now?
I believe it's number 4 right now.
So fourth as far as what they're tracking as most mileage in a Model 3. How are you able to put so much miles on the vehicle?
Well, it comes down to I drive a lot. I originally, when I put the reservation in, a couple years before production started, I had a long work commute and was getting the car primarily for that purpose. I was driving Uber and Lyft at the time, though, too, with my current car, and the intention was to do it once I had the Model 3 as well. I knew I'd put a lot of miles on it. I had no idea I would be putting this many miles on it, though.
Right. Well, I mean, would you say that some of that is due to just pure enjoyment of driving the car?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been a sports car guy most of my life. I've owned some fun stuff like an E36 M3 and a Boss 302
Wow.
Mustang.
Yeah.
So I've been a car guy, pretty much my whole life, and specifically a sports car guy. So I like, especially good handling cars.
Yeah.
I still have my Miata, which I use for track days.
Yeah.
So I can still get my 5-speed fix whenever I want to,
Yeah.
and keep my heel and toe
So
shifting sharp.
how long have you been doing Uber and Lyft for?
3.5 years now.
3.5.
So almost a year and a half with the Model 3 now, and I don't know the exact breakdown, but I think I have probably at least 2,500 trips with it now.
Wow. Okay. Now, so this is a really good, kind of comparison. So about a year and a half in a regular ICE vehicle, and a year and a half in your Tesla Model 3. What was the ICE vehicle that you were using for the Uber and Lyft?
Okay. Well, it wasn't a pure ICE vehicle because it was a second-gen Chevy Volt.
Okay.
Was an excellent car. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a good gateway drug car because you get about 55 miles of electric, and then the gas engine would kick in.
Yep.
And you wish you had more electric miles because it was a
Yeah.
better car when it was running electric than gas. But there were some things with it where the Model 3 works better in that it's got a lot bigger back seat.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a bigger trunk, a better sound system, just some other things that the Volt worked okay for rideshare driving.
Yeah.
The Model 3 is spectacular, and
Yeah.
I'm not using hyperbole. It really
So
is.
between the two of them, I mean, obviously with ride sharing, there's a ton of mileage that you're putting on your car and a ton of driving that you're doing. So there's of course maintenance that goes along with the car. So how would you say is the maintenance? Now I know with the Volt, I don't know what all maintenance is involved, but I'm guessing since it's kind of a hybrid, that there is still that engine maintenance that you
Yeah.
need. So what kind of maintenance were you doing? Did you do in that year and a half with the Volt, and then what maintenance have you done on the Model 3?
Well, the Volt, the big one, was mainly oil changes. That's the biggest difference. Obviously, there was regen braking there too. I could easily say, based on my experience, if it had been a standard gasoline vehicle, Brakes would have been a much bigger issue. I live at the top of a 1,700-foot mountain
Wow.
that's renowned for eating brakes.
Yeah.
The nice thing with the Volt was this way, and the Model 3, in fact, just a couple weeks ago, I had popped one of the front wheels off, and the brake pads are still over 90%.
Wow.
They look practically brand
Wow.
new.
So 70,000 miles later.
On a hill that eats brakes.
On a hill that eats brakes. Most of us don't live in those kind of conditions, and your brake pads are still at 90%.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So for those of you that are questions about brakes and maintenance on the vehicle, there you go. It's a great example.
Yeah. And, you know, as I said, you know, I'm a sports car guy. I don't always drive the car gently.
Yeah.
Always legally, though. And it's not, this isn't a gentle use vehicle. This is a vehicle that's been driven, and those, you know, what are we at, almost 70,000 miles. They're not me sitting in the front seat driving on the freeway.
Right.
It's thousands of people, probably over 5,000 people have been in and out of this car on rideshare trips. I have a 12-year-old boy. I drive off pavement a lot because a lot of the wineries in Napa and Sonoma County where I drive, you're on dirt and gravel roads.
Rocks, gravel.
So it's I'm really torture testing the Model 3, and so I'm here from the future to tell you what your car will be like in 5 years. Basically.
And I mean, my initial look at it is, it looks great. Now I know that you cleaned it up a little bit, but I mean, you know, the flooring, there's no floor mats in the car, and the flooring looks great. The original Tesla carpeted mats look great. No noticeability of rust or anything like that. But, you know, I will ask you, right, the maintenance that you've gone through in the last year and a half, and any, you know, service events or service visits that you've had with Tesla, what have they been? Have you had any negative experiences or anything that happened to the car where you're like, oh, this kind of sucks? Or has it been all great experience?
You know, I think it's important. It hasn't been, my experience hasn't been perfect. It's been excellent. I've had a couple of small issues come up, either resolved by a ranger or a trip to the service center. Probably the best thing I could say in each of those instances, you know, back in the ICE car days, there are dealerships you go to and those you don't, and when you find a good one, you keep going back. Yeah, it was very clear to me dealing with Tesla on just a couple. I think I'm averaging one minor issue every 15,000 miles.
Wow.
Yeah, and nothing that's left me on the side of the road. It's usually been, it just threw up a warning on the screen.
Got it.
And I had to make an appointment, and yeah, either they came up and the ranger just fixed it in the driveway.
Yeah.
Or I just drove it down and they fixed it.
Right. Any missing bolts? Any rust?
No.
Any panel gaps when you got yours?
No. You know, there's been a lot of things. My opinion, having driven the car so much and owned it a while, there's an almost impossible double standard that's been applied.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, for those of you out here listening, the paint is not soft. It's actually not as soft as, I'm not going to throw some other manufacturers. I actually like Under the Bus, but it's not as soft as a couple other vehicles.
And you've got experience with other vehicles too, as you've stated before.
The interior, and it's, if I lean forward and see it a little better, I have never had an interior material as good as the synthetic leather that Tesla uses in these things.
Yeah.
I am astounded at how much abuse it's taken.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, over 5,000 people have climbed in and out of this car.
Incredible.
In the last 14 months. And when I clean the interior, it looks new still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing that I noticed, to be honest, in the interior is on the driver's seat, right? The side bolstering is, of course, kind of worn in a little bit. Obviously, getting in and out of the vehicle, especially from your side. But I mean, it looks like natural leather wear, like the way leather would wear in.
But no cracks or anything. It's just, and very, very easy to clean. So the hype about their synthetic leather, it's the real deal. My experience is I wouldn't take a real leather interior over it if somebody offered to give me one for free. And like in past cars, I've actually preferred cloth. It's actually converted me. I would not prefer a cloth interior over this stuff.
Now, just going back, you've said that you've done track days. You've got a Miata you take on the track. Have you taken this car to the track?
I have not. For a couple
Any
of,
interest to?
I do. I guess one of those things is, having done a lot of track days, you get to a point where my attitude is, you shouldn't take a car to the track that you aren't able and willing to walk away from the crumpled heap.
Mm-hmm.
So advice to anybody thinking about it, unless I never went through and did an insurance for a track day. I know there's options out there.
It's very expensive from what I heard.
And they're very pricey. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the reason.
So your son, when he learns how to drive, what do you see yourself as kind of pushing him towards? Do you see him letting him practice on this car, hand this car down, you move to another Tesla,
Yeah.
or kind of start on an ICE vehicle?
Well, I have mixed feelings. The protective father in me loves the idea of, about when this is paid for is when he'll start driving, and as far as being, everybody knows about the safety, and certainly I have to say all the driving assistance and whatnot for what I use it for, is amazing. I feel safer in heavy traffic letting the car change lanes,
Mm-hmm.
because that ability, you can't underestimate that ability to see all four directions at once.
Right.
And
right.
well, I use Autopilot extensively, but I'm always supervising it. But the fact that it can see all four directions at once, I would rather let it change lanes and I just carefully supervise,
Yeah.
rather than do it myself, because I actually feel safer because it has that ability to look four
Absolutely.
directions at once.
Absolutely.
So I love it.
So that's a good transition also to, Autopilot, right? There, the way that you're now taking this car and using Autopilot that the Volt didn't have,
Yeah.
right? How has that made Uber and Lyft for you, better, right? I would assume that you're able to drive more and be less tired.
Yeah. Once again, people talk about this, but from somebody who spends probably on average 10 hours a day in the car,
Wow.
at least.
It's more than what some of us work in the office.
Yeah. I would have to say the amount of reduction of fatigue is real.
Mhm.
It just makes it's a pleasant place to spend your days.
Yeah.
It was like my initial intent was to do rideshare driving, but on the side,
Mhm.
and then some kind of curveballs life has thrown me,
Of course.
kind of thrust me in a position where now I'm doing it full time, and now it's almost funny. It's like I'm enjoying myself so much doing it full time
Yeah.
that I'm not really that motivated to go look for, I guess, a real job, as you would say, because I'm enjoying it so much.
Right.
It's such a nice place to spend your days.
Right.
And the fatigue level, as far as driving that much but using Autopilot a lot, you are safer and your fatigue level is a lot lower.
Yeah.
I can be out, for 10 hours, get home, and I'm not exhausted. Whereas in any car that didn't have the Autopilot, I would be. It's one of those things I would say, if the car didn't have Autopilot, for all the other fantastic things, the power, the handling, the efficiency, which is huge for me with the miles I drive, the low maintenance requirements, it would be worth it just for that.
Yeah.
Or if it were simply a V6 sports sedan with Autopilot, it would be worth it just for the Autopilot,
Yeah.
for driving that much. But when you combine the two together, it becomes, it sounds like hyperbole, but it's extraordinary.
Right,
And I'm not blowing smoke. It really has been
Yeah.
for me.
So for those of the viewers who are questioning Autopilot,
Mhm.
your advice to them would be to purchase Autopilot? Well, actually, now it comes with Autopilot.
Yeah, it comes with it. So, don't be afraid to use it. I mean, I think all of us the first month, as I joke, with all my passengers, it's like how I imagine, when my son hits 15 and gets the learner's permit,
Yeah. Yeah.
but, I think an important aspect of using Autopilot is getting really familiar with it and knowing what it can and can't handle.
Yep.
Anybody who's used it a lot will say that, because you get really good. There's sometimes I just proactively take over because I'm like, I don't know how it will handle this.
Yeah.
So this merge or this tricky situation. So I'm just going to take over for 5 seconds and just flip it back on and continue on my way. It's funny, I've gotten to the point now I'm so spoiled by it that I usually turn it on when I get to a situation where it's the freeway or heavy stop and go. That's my favorite use for it.
Yeah.
Where I subconsciously turn it on now.
Now, do you have full self-driving?
No,
Or just autopilot?
just enhanced autopilot.
Okay,
That's
okay,
what- yeah,
enhanced
when I
autopilot.
got
So
it, yeah.
you got the summon and you've
Yeah.
got, you know, all of that stuff as well.
I'm still chicken to use summon. Oh,
I know.
It's like I moved the car back. I moved it forward. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it works. And
Yeah.
but for me, it's funny for someone who uses autopilot as much as I do.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm not there to stomp on the brake pedal, I'm still working on that.
Yeah,
one.
yeah. It's right now it's kind of more of a party gag, I would say.
Yeah.
But we'll see when it starts raining, and you know, kind of see if we can leverage the
Yeah.
use purpose. So let's talk a little bit about your actual car, right?
Mhm.
So you bought it in 2018 July, and so what made you choose? It's a blue car. What made you choose blue?
You know, it's probably one of, if not my favorite colors for a car. I always wanted like a dark blue car.
Yeah.
Yeah, my old E36 M3 that I got used, it was the Estoril, the really bright blue that I really liked. But yeah, I tend to like a little bit darker, more subdued blues better. So it was the first time I ever had a chance to get a car and I could pick that color.
Right.
And it kind of led me to, you know, it's like when you can name your Tesla, and some people don't.
Yeah. The name of Tesla.
I probably gave it too much thought, but when the thought came what to name it, it was perfect. Because my grandfather was a tail gunner in a Douglas Dauntless in World War II.
Wow.
Which those planes were painted dark blue.
Yeah.
Right? And when you look at pictures of it, the dark blue, at least when it's not sun faded or whatnot, is very close to, you know, the deep blue Tesla uses for our cars. So so I named it Dauntless in honor of the dive bomber that he flew in. And that was the initial, you know, I guess correlation. But also I remember him telling me once the designation for the Dauntless was like SBD 3, SBD 5, and the SBD stood for Scout Bomber Douglas, or Douglas Aircraft Manufacturer. He said the aircrews, the nickname was Slow But Deadly.
There you go.
And you know, it's another correlation. It just popped into my head one day. It's like, because you know, my Model 3, it's a long-range rear-wheel drive. It's certainly not the fastest, member of the Tesla family. I got to drive a P90D with the ludicrous wheels, and so I know it's not the fastest. But it's the fun thing is it's still quick enough to make people, you know, say wow.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not used to it, but. In a sense, that SBD, this car, it has been kind of slow but deadly. Absolutely. Because, you know, when you get thousands of people coming through here, and I know the car pretty well, and, you know, like I said, I've had a great experience with it. You know, everything they say is true, the handling, the efficiency and whatnot, and they start answering me questions. A lot of misconceptions or false information has been crushed for people sitting in this back seat talking.
So now these are your passengers, right? So they come in, and you know, they, of course, you roll up in this car. What's their first reaction when they see it?
Usually excitement, I would say, at least, even here in Northern California, and I drive, you know, in wine country in the North Bay, so lots of visitors, but at least half my passengers have never been in a Tesla before.
Wow. And so they come, you pull up, they come in. What's their first reaction? What do they say to you?
The first thing is usually I have to teach them how to open the doors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's that look like? Do you roll down the window? Do you tell them?
It's just automatic for me now. And some people, I guess they're bothered by. In some ways, it's almost kind of fun because it's just kind of like. It's the opening of this is going to be a different experience for you today.
Right.
You know, I have to even show you how to get in the car. You know, although it was funny one day I had a guy come up and I rolled down the window, was opening my mouth to give my little spiel. You know, push with your thumb, hook with your pinky. You know, and he opened the door faster than I do, and I just kind of cocked my head. He just shrugged and said, "I work for Tesla." So, the Model S owners are great though if they've never been in one, because they walk up and they sit there and wait for the handle to pop out, and then I'm like, "Sorry, it's only a Model 3. You got to do it yourself."
Right.
But
so going back to what you said, I think that was really a key important factor is that when these passengers are coming in, they may already have some misconceptions. They may already have some ideas and stuff that they've either read about or seen.
Most have misconceptions.
Wow.
In fact,
Wow.
I'd say, yeah.
And so do they just kind of come off the cuff and start to ask you about them, ask you to verify them, or are they coming a little bit more accusatory, or are they coming open-minded?
It's all of the above, and it's one of those things. They've made me really good at talking about the car because I've had people even like, yeah, I'm sorry, are you okay with me just firing machine gun questions at you? And I'm like, this is some days it's almost every trip. So I've gotten rather good at answering
a mobile
them.
salesman.
I don't know if I'll launch into my spiel, but in fact, if anything, I'm a little, when I first got the car, you're so excited, you want to tell everybody everything. Now I'm almost a little more laid back about it because I found if they're going to ask, and anything that they want or need to know, I'm going to tell them, but I just kind of let them drive the conversation rather than, not that my enthusiasm for the car isn't there. If anything, I was excited when I got it, and now I'm so utterly impressed with the genius of it, which after a year and a half and 70,000 miles, I think that probably says as much as anything about it. That I'm more impressed with the car now than I was the day I drove it home.
Well, we talk about like every iteration, every update adds more and more features that were never there when you bought it. So what you bought is completely different than what it is now in a better way.
Yeah, I'll publicly eat some crow. When I first heard about the karaoke, I was kind of like rolling my eyes, and it's like, I hear they're better now, but it's like, can't we get the automatic wipers perfect first? Sort of person. But I love that stupid thing. And it's like, I even tweeted a couple weeks ago, when I started using it, it's like, I think I'm the most popular Uber Lyft in the whole North Bay, if not human civilization. Because people just love it, and it's so well done. That, and there's so many things about the car that it is so much fun. It's fun whether you're bending it into a turn, with the bit between your teeth on a twisty road. It's almost fun. I remember my first block of time using Autopilot. My wife and I got in a traffic jam coming back from Sacramento, and I was sitting there listening to Mozart for half an hour as it putted through the traffic jam behind an accident on I-80. And that was the moment where it's like, worth every penny. This thing, it's worth every stinking penny. Because I'm just sitting there, blood pressure low, you gotta
You're almost kind of bored
for that.
What do I do?
But it's more, you're just relaxed because you're still watching the car, but for some reason, at least for me personally, it's so much more relaxed state than when you're driving in it for some reason. So there's just so many aspects of it for me that it's exceeded expectation. And like I said, as far as the durability of it, with all the people in and out of it and all the miles, and like I said, it's not just been easy miles. It's not me in the driver's seat driving on the freeway. It's been torture testing. It's rough miles a lot of the time. Lots of people getting in and out.
And many are not driving on gravel. I know some of those, the vineyards in Napa are, they're rough. You drive anything more than like 5 miles an hour, you're kicking up rocks everywhere. And the car, from just kind of looking around it, obviously there's the rock chips in the front and stuff like that are kind of natural, but there's nothing of any really, like you indicated, there's no major maintenance that you've needed to do, nothing that's really broke on you that shouldn't have broken. The car looks, in fact, you've done no modifications to the car. And so compared to mine, when I sit in here, it feels like I'm sitting in on my delivery day car, because it looks exactly the way my car looked at delivery. I had an original wood dash, and I changed that with a white dash. But, I don't see any... It makes me very excited about the future of the car, that it ages well. You've kind of pumped in 70,000, very quickly. But, now with, I think Elon talked about, 1 million miles, right? Is that what this car should be able to attain? And I think we're seeing it here, right? No major issues with, with the battery or with anything. And speaking about battery, how has been your range? Are you seeing any degradation?
I was trying to calculate it out. I would say, I was looking, I'd say between 1% and 2%. I'll estimate high, and I'll say I'm at about 2% degradation at around 60,000 miles.
Wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
first 6 months, now I take pretty good care of it. I've rarely been below 20%. I've almost never charged above 90%. So I'm very proactive
Yeah.
in obviously I'm going to put a lot of miles on this car,
Yep,
and
yep.
and because I'm going to have to keep it a long time because I've kind of burned my ships, as it were,
Yeah.
with putting this many miles on it at the start early on.
Now, is
But
most of your charging, are you doing, because obviously if you're ride sharing, you may need to stop and do supercharging.
early on, I wasn't supercharging much at all. Now I supercharge almost daily.
Okay. So
Because I
daily
have to.
supercharging, never really going below 20%?
Yeah, I aim for 30. Usually that's if I'm near a charger and I'm down near about 30%, I just stop and charge real quick. The turnaround with supercharging is real. Usually it's, I have to wolf down fast food to eat the car, and that's what I do. Because everybody, one of the biggest questions you get, and we all get, is where do you charge? And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, you know, probably 90% of my charging is at home while I sleep because it's 10 seconds to plug it in.
Yep.
And you walk out and it's full every morning. And that was actually the biggest surprise for me because you hear other people talk about that.
Yeah.
But until you live it a while for yourself, you don't really get it. And then it's like, this is fantastic. That first month or so of the magic elves coming and filling your car up every night. And then a month in, when you drive by the gas station, you look over and it's like, wow, it's up over $4 a gallon again.
Yep.
And you're like, and then I'm going to use a bad word here, the shit-eating grin starts to spread across your face because you didn't know it was over $4 a gallon again. California, of course.
I know
but still.
My wife just said, she was like, oh man, gas is up to whatever it is right now, over $4, and I just kind of smiled.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
I
don't
don't
stop
even
anymore.
I don't even pay attention because for me the real world efficiency has been 25 cents on the dollar. It's 1/4 the cost of a fairly fuel efficient gas car to run. My lifetime average is better than the 130 mpge it's rated at.
Yeah.
And that's with plenty of enthusiastic launches and fun driving. You don't have to drive it like a granny to get fantastic efficiency out of it.
I agree. My efficiency is great, and I still get those moments where you just take off. So, Jim, with all of the, all the ride-sharing miles that you have under your belt, there's obviously, you've probably heard of Elon talking about their Tesla network, ride-sharing network, and that it's going to launch, and robotaxis and so forth. So curious to know your thoughts on Tesla's network, kind of benefits, pros, cons, and how that would be different from what you're doing today with Uber and Lyft.
Well, first off, there's probably nobody on Earth more excited, for the Tesla network to come.
Yeah.
So I hope it's not too far away. But I will also say, I think it would be an excellent idea to launch it with Tesla owners first and let people get used to the cars. Especially, it's easy for us in our Tesla world where we live with Autopilot every day to forget, and because I see this every day of my life practically, people who've never experienced it before.
Yeah.
And so if you think, even if we get to a point where the level 5 is solid and we do have robotaxis, for people to adopt that, they're going to have to be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And it's huge to have an experienced person who knows Autopilot well sitting in that driver's seat, talking to them about it, talking about the experiences, even talking about the pros and cons. The way I put it is, at the point it's at right now, it's the world's greatest cruise control. It is not a self-driving car yet.
Right.
And so, like any tool, used properly, Autopilot is magnificent. We were talking earlier about how much it lowers my fatigue level.
Yeah.
It's just how much it lowers your blood pressure, especially in heavy traffic, and even makes you safer. But it's good for people to hear that from owners, to hear it from people who've used it a lot. And then when we do get to the point where it's the level 5 robotaxis, the adoption rate will be so much quicker and easier. Even with those at the start, you'll probably have to have a driver in the front seat for a while just to get people used to it and confident in it. So I'm just gung ho. I'm saying let's get this party started.
Yeah.
We need to get this Tesla network moving. So when we do get to the point where level 5, is ready to go, people will be so much more comfortable and ready for it,
Yeah.
and adoption
Absolutely.
will happen so much faster. As well as for Tesla owners, it's not for everybody, granted, but if you're like me, you're going to have more fun doing it
Yeah.
than you probably think you will.
Right.
Some people will anyway. You'll easily be able to pay for the car doing it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to do it that much in that regard. And as far as not just specific to Tesla, but just to EV adoption and what it's like to live with one, when they can sit back here and talk with someone who has nearly 70,000 miles in various conditions with their car. And and they learn that the efficiency and the lower maintenance and all the benefits as far as space and the autopilot and the lack of fatigue, these are real.
Yeah.
These are things we experience every day, but because we do, it's hard to understand how, because I see this so much, how new this is to the populace at large.
Yeah.
And so that having that Tesla network out there for people to gain that comfort level, it's just going to speed the adoption so much faster. Not just of EVs and maybe Teslas as well, but also level 5 rideshare, robotaxis,
and everyone becomes an ambassador.
Yeah.
It's a great experience. I know for myself, I would love to get a rideshare that's purely EV, specifically a Tesla. But today, it's hard to do. It's hard within Uber and Lyft to select I want an EV.
Yeah, I believe I remember in Europe, Uber had an option to do it. I haven't. If it's over here in the States at all, I've heard rumblings about them doing it, but they haven't done it yet. I've been told that they notify somebody that, you got an EV to come pick you up.
Yeah.
But okay, so why can't people start requesting EVs if they want that option?
Yeah.
Especially one like mine, it's charged mostly off of green energy, so much the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jim, thank you for taking the time. You've really been a great help to, I hope, a lot of you who have tuned in to kind of find out, what is a Model 3 after 70,000 miles, and more importantly, Jim's experience with his Model 3, it being, a year and a half, but putting a lot of miles on it. What was the battery degradation? How has the maintenance been on the vehicle? For a lot of you, this is your first EV, and you have these kind of questions just because EVs have not been around for that long as our ICE vehicles that we're used to. And so hopefully this helped calm some of your fears in the world of EV and made choosing an EV and hopefully choosing a Tesla and a Model 3 that much easier. Jim, thank you for taking the time with us. Thank you for all your miles that you've driven and helped the Tesla fleet and the network, and all the people that you've helped learn and advocate the Tesla brand to with your ride sharing.
Yeah. And, just kind of in summary, I would say, I remember I'd had the car, just a little over a month, or I'd say, and I was driving home one night and just kind of thinking of my first, month with ownership. And it's just all the advantages as far as, the fuel costs, the savings are real. The lower maintenance levels by far, just the space advantages, the luggage advantages. I mean, I've had a guy 6'7" sit back here and he fit, and a Model 3 is not a big car.
Right.
And just the phrase that popped into my mind that night was simply superior technology. And it sounds simplistic and almost like hyperbole, but it was literally, that's what I thought, because that was just over a month in, and now 16 months and almost 70,000 miles in, it's been even more so that my experience has been there. So don't shy away from it. It's better than you think it will be. A lot of the quotes, information that's out there is being put out by people who don't want you to get one because they either are, in most cases, I either financially or philosophically, for whatever reason, against EV adoption and against Tesla in particular. But if I were making a decision tomorrow, I would have a list of one. And I've been privileged enough to own some great cars in my lifetime, but at this point there's simply nothing out there that would even, I would even bother to go look at, because even though we are starting to see some nicer EVs come out from other manufacturers, when you've experienced supercharging on road trips and the fact that the car charges faster than I can eat oftentimes, that's a huge, ingenious part of owning a Tesla.
Right.
And the longer I've owned it, it's like the more impressed I have been with different aspects of the car, even more so than the day I drove it home.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate
My
everything.
pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, first I want to say thanks to Jim for spending the time with us to teach us about his vehicle and what he's been through 70,000 miles with his Model 3 over the last 15 months. And hopefully for those of you who are sitting on the fence, still questioning about EVs and if it's the right move for you or if they can last, hopefully this helped to clarify some of those questions and put your minds at ease when looking at your next EV. Hopefully you're looking at buying a Tesla, and if you are, what I do ask is that you go ahead and use Jim's referral code. I'll go ahead and put it down below as well as in the description. Realistically, you learned from him today, not from me. And if you have a Tesla and you're looking at exploring Uber and Lyft lifestyle like Jim, I'll put his referral codes for Uber and Lyft as well. Use those down below, show him some love. He definitely sat down, took time out of his busy schedule to really share the positive experience that he's had with his Tesla and to really squash the doubt that's being put in some of the minds today. As you know, I've had amazing experience with my Tesla. So is Jim. He's got a lot more miles in his vehicle and driven his vehicle a lot more than I have. So I put a lot of trust in Jim's opinion. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you like this kind of video and you like the interview style, hit this video with a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.